first edition of 15 Minutes in the Cloud by the Cloud Storage Technologies Initiative. Today, we're going to start with a very basic concept. What is the cloud? This is a very broad topic, and we're going to try to keep it within 15 minutes. And so my name is Chip Maurer. I'm a software senior principal engineer at Dell Technologies, and I'll be one of the co-hosts today. I work on some of the cloud storage technologies within Dell. I was a former EMC employee. And today I have with us Alex McDonald. Alex, go ahead and say hello and tell us a little about yourself.
Hi, Chip. I'm Alex McDonald. I'm an independent consultant, and I'm the current chair of the SNIA Cloud Technologies Initiative. And I'm here with Chip today to talk to you about cloud in 15 minutes.
Okay, so let's get started. Before we get started with the actual talk, there's a little bit of a SNIA legal notice. You've probably seen these before if you've watched one of the SNIA videos. So just take a look at the what we got here in the legal notice about what we're doing today, and we'll get going. All right. So let's get into the introduction. Of course, today we're going to talk about the cloud and cover a bunch of topics in just 15 minutes. As I said, we're going to start with the history of the cloud, where it came from, some of the building blocks that go ahead and make up a cloud, the cloud technologies that we know and use today. We're going to talk about some terminology, terminology, and then we're going to do some use cases and some of the services that are provided by cloud storage and cloud computing. And then finally, we'll talk about some cloud futures. So our target audience today is anybody that's just got a question about cloud. Maybe they know a little bit about it. They want to just be able to have some more information, and we hope that you get some of that. And I certainly hope forward to future of these 15-minute in the cloud technology talks. And to that point, it is a no judgment zone, so don't worry about being here. Checking a look at all this presentation. I had a lot of questions when I first started working on cloud storage back in 2014. So there's a lot of things going on, and let's get started with the presentation. So I want to kind of pose a what if question to people. So what if we know what happened with COVID? We were able to address COVID. A lot of things have happened over the years, and it wasn't quite the disaster that it could have been. So I want you to think back and think about 20 years ago. 20 years ago in 1999, around that same time of January, we were looking at Y2K, and again, Y2K wasn't much of a catastrophic disaster that it was being projected to be. But what would have happened if COVID actually happened 20 years ago? So all the things that we were able to deal with the COVID over the past 2 years might not have been available. So things like all the lockdowns with no work from home options. Think about some of the catastrophic economic impact of that. Think about the scientific research that happened so quickly because of the technology. All the researching was able to share their data and also things like shop from home. We couldn't have been shopping from home as much as as we did in 2020 and beyond. So so if COVID happened just 20 years ago, a lot of things could have been different. So the cloud has given society the ability to react to local and global events in a fraction of the time that it would have before the cloud happened. And amazingly, it seems just the last 20 years that the cloud has been part of our life, and really only the last 5 years that it's just become a part of everyday lives. Everybody is impacted in some fashion. So, Alex, lots happened to get us to this point. Why don't you tell us a little bit about some of the technologies that have come along in the past 50 years now, actually, that brought us to the cloud?
So I think one of the fundamentals, one of the foundation pieces was good communications. And this is a diagram of ARPANET in December 1969. And before I go very much further, I want to tell you a little story. On Monday this week, I had a WhatsApp call with my sister. I was sitting in my car in Stratford-upon-Avon, the birthplace of the bard, Shakespeare. And she was somewhere in the south of Sri Lanka, not quite sure where. And she and I were having a conversation and exchanging pictures over, firstly, a large distance, but secondly, from technology that could only have been dreamt of in the wildest dreams back in 1969. So way back in 69, here was the first computer-to-computer network communications across 4 locations in the US, courtesy of ARPANET. And boy, how we've moved on since. So having done the communications side, we saw the growth of the internet. We also saw the development of a ubiquitous operating system that enabled us to do this kind of communication. And here are Ken Thompson and Dennis Ritchie in some really dreadful duds and some terribly bad hairdos. But way back in the late 60s, this was state of the art, not only technology, but the way to look. But Ken and Dennis put together Unix systems, an OS, a simple piece of technology that allowed us to do these communications. As you can see, they were using teletypes at the time. This was enabled to a large degree by a little bit later by Vint Cerf with TCP/IP. So ubiquitous, we don't even think about it now. But in 1973, when it first came out, TCP/IP was a complete revelation in terms of communications, in terms of the robustness of the networking it provided. So this was a third part to this communications piece that we have that goes on with the cloud. The fourth piece, Ethernet. I mean, hey, where would we be without Ethernet? You know, Ethernet has become ubiquitous, as has the radio part of it, you know, the wireless part of it. We've now got not just the physical cabling that can connect from point to point and from router to router and allows the interconnectedness of everything, but we've also got radio part of it that allows communication way out beyond it. You know, and think back to my telephone call with my sister on Monday. You know, that was radio communication from my cell phone all the way through to her cell phone from Stratford-upon-Avon to Sri Lanka. Quite amazing, all enabled by this technology. And last but not least, the thing I think that really made quite a difference as well was the introduction of the way to name things, because originally the way we'd described the endpoints in our internet was, and we still do to a degree, but was with numbers. You know, we had 192.168.4.5, for instance, as an IP address. And those IP addresses are fine, but remembering them is a real devil. And naming things, allowing the names of these endpoints and the domain name system, the development of that was a real positive boon and allowed us to quickly exchange mnemonics for numbers, which is always a great way of doing things. So with these fundamental pieces in place, people like Tim Berners-Lee, the inventor of the World Wide Web, could come along and literally change forever the way that we looked at technology and the way that we consumed technology and the way that we put data and information on that technology. This was such a fundamental change. I really do encourage people to go and look at the history, because it shows exactly how we got from there to here. And these people and these technologies were the foundational building blocks of the cloud technologies we use today.
Well, that's interesting. So the internet, as we know it, is such a critical piece here. But people might ask, so then the internet must be the cloud. That's not really exactly true. But without the internet, what we know as the cloud, frankly, just wouldn't exist. So then, you know, what is the cloud? You know, and so, you know, in simplest terms, you could think of the cloud as the delivery of services over the internet using somebody else's computers, networking, and storage. And so here you can see some data center somewhere that's being used to do services and deliver services. So So service delivery is an important aspect of what the cloud is, and in fact, that's a primary aspect of what it is. So we can look at some of the service models here. You might have heard of a service models, these things called service models. Some of the earlier ones were developed early in the late 1990s. Salesforce has been around for a while. Salesforce came up with a service model called software as a service. And so with software as a service, as you can see here, basically the user, the consumer of the service is responsible for nothing. They don't have to deal with the application and the data and management of all that, and all the way down to the actual so-called computer part, which is dealt with a lot of times with virtualization. So using the internet, you could access Salesforce without having to install anything. If you remember all those diskettes you might have had to install back in the 90s and the 80s for sure, Salesforce, this software as a service, was a huge step in the advancement of the cloud technology. So absolutely, Salesforce was a key part of that. Other examples of software as a service might be something like Dropbox, WebEx, and Concur if you've used any of those technologies. So there's a couple other of these as a service models. Another good one is called platform as a service. With the platform, you're getting pretty much the computer, everything up to the computer, where what we commonly would refer to that. So the operating system, the runtime environment, anything in the middleware, all the way again down to servers, storage, and networking. And the consumer here is only responsible for providing applications and data. So another a good example here would be Windows Azure, Microsoft Azure, which we're going to talk about in a second, is the basic part of that platform. But with Windows Azure, you get a Windows environment. You don't have to handle all the things that you might have had to deal with before. So again, infrastructure as a service, what I was just getting into, infrastructure as a service provides where somebody else is providing the infrastructure for your environment, and you're responsible for dealing with creating what would be referred to as a server, or as your computer with the operating system, the middleware, the runtime, and so forth. So the as a service model was really important with all the cloud technologies that we have today. So we want to get into it. It's kind of this we just said, like I said, we got Microsoft Azure is your infrastructure as a service. So Amazon in the past 20 years has been a huge contributor to some of the as a service or the cloud technologies, and as well as certainly Microsoft and Google as well. But with Amazon in '94, Amazon came around. If you recall back then, they were an online bookseller, and you would connect online, and you would using the internet, and you would be able to order books from Microsoft or from Amazon's website. As they got bigger and bigger, incidentally, if 97 Microsoft or Amazon stock was about $2. So invent a time machine and go back and buy some of that stock. But in 1999, Amazon started selling, realizing that it had a great platform for online sales, and so they started offering online capabilities to other vendors who might wanted to purchase the ability to create have an online presence. So they created this platform, and in 2003 they launched it, calling it Amazon Web Services, which is a licensed service platform, so that other e-commerce sites could take advantage of that. And some of the technologies that have been out there from Amazon Web Services, like S3 for storage and EC2 for compute, have been part of their biggest income generators for Amazon, besides all the money that they make from just Amazon itself. So Amazon AWS makes it easy for a service company, to create one of those as a service models. Creates a standard framework for all the aspects of conducting their business online. So it's a pay-as-you-go model where you can grow or shrink your offering, your resources that are being consumed in the cloud as needed, and so easily. So Amazon was a critical part of getting us to where we are today with the cloud. So Alex, there are a number of different types of clouds. We've talked about AWS or Amazon Web Services Cloud, Microsoft's cloud, and Google's cloud. So tell us a little bit about some of the different types and how they differ.
No, the basic types of cloud, there's two basic types. There's a public cloud, the ones that we've been talking about, where you go and buy services from a third party, and they're available over the internet, and they scale, they're quick, they're convenient, they're almost limitless. If you think about, for instance, going out and buying compute power, you can buy more compute power than you know what to do with, or more storage space than you know what to do with. A private cloud, on the other hand, is something where I, as a deliverer of service, I decide I'm going to provide my end users with their own private cloud. And I might need to do that for legislative reasons. Perhaps I have some restricted data that I want to manage, and I'm not too sure about putting it on the public cloud, so I need that greater security. And it looks more like a traditional data center, but the access to it is very cloud-like. And by cloud, I mean, if you think about the way you draw clouds, you put this big fluffy thing, and it arrows in. That's the things I put in, and the things I manage on the way in, and arrows out. That's the information or the whatever thing I get out the back end of my cloud. And everything else in the middle is stuff that happens. So it depends on where the stuff that happens. Is it public cloud or is it private cloud? Or is it both? Because you can actually have hybrid clouds where you share the responsibility for the data, perhaps the applications of the data for certain types of business function, let's say Salesforce or payroll or something like that, are done in the public cloud. And the stuff to do with my engineering diagrams and my top secret stuff is done on my private cloud. And then I've got another sense of mix and match where I can do multi-cloud, which is basically multiple public clouds and perhaps a private cloud in there, and really mix and match it and do use brokerage services that give me the cheapest possible storage, or the cheapest possible compute, or the cheapest possible storage and high performance compute, or high performance storage and a small amount of compute, whatever it might be. And I can build these multi-cloud models, and I can take my services from whichever vendor happens to be offering me the best deal. But there are various types of cloud, but two fundamental ones: the public cloud, the stuff I think we all associate with cloud, and a private cloud, which is you running your own internal infrastructure.
Yeah. So Alex, 20 years ago with Amazon, and if anybody wanted to access their website, the Amazon's website to buy stuff, they sat down at their desktop or their laptop and connected into using the DNS, and were able to access Amazon from that point of view. But recently, cell phone technology has really changed how cloud services are offering. So what do you got on that?
So basically, if you think about it, there's the cloud bit, there's what's going on. That's the stuff that we're that's the processing stuff in the cloud. But what we're doing is we're extending the concept of the cloud and what can actually get into the cloud. And mobile is just one of them. Cell phones have given a big push forward in terms of improving the telecommunications infrastructure, and also making the telecommunications infrastructure more uniform, in the sense that I no longer differentiate between what's happening between my cell phone and the internet. It's all one thing. So that sense of being able to connect up all the pieces is much easier than it used to be. That's the first thing. And the second thing is that everyone's got one. I mean, the world population is what, about 7 billion, and I think 4 billion of us have some smart device or device that is connected to the internet. So a huge amount of penetration of these kind of technologies. Then we've got the Internet of Things, which is where we're beginning to see stuff move out. I suppose this is more towards the future of technology. But for instance, farmers with sensors in fields that tell them the amount of rain, the amount of sun, the temperature of the soil. how much fertilizer needs to be put. We can then take that and use that information to do analytics to tell us how much fertilizer to put down in what particular parts of the field, and automatically do that by informing the fertilizer equipment that's attached to the back of the robot tractor that's trawling around the field how much fertilizer to put in what spots. I mean, the technology advances that we've got here with mobile computing is absolutely amazing. The one thing that's driving that's not on the diagram, but we should use the acronym 5G. 5G is really beginning to drive this because it's very high bandwidth, very low latency communications, and it's going to be pretty ubiquitous shortly. You're going to find 5G everywhere.
Yep, absolutely, exactly. It's like having a network, high-speed network in your hand, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's where we're at now, and we can talk about futures, and it's I'm going to state the obvious that all these cloud services that provide capabilities for businesses and banking and government and military and people, it's you can't help but imagine just the explosive growth that's going to happen between in just even the short future, not let alone let alone down the far down the road. And Alex also mentioned some of these things here, right, Alex? Phones, 5G, edge computing, Internet of Things, and analytics. So, what do what's your thoughts on some of these futures?
Well, I think they're a fantastic opportunity to do things that we've never been able to do before in a much more connected way. It's not just about ordering stuff off Amazon and getting it delivered to the door within 24 hours. There's the whole thing about the logistics and the supply chain that we can improve on with cloud technologies. I think the one thing that we all need to be aware of as well is security and privacy are going to be big issues. And, I think people really need to think about, if you put stuff in the cloud, are you willing for other people to use it? And if you're taking stuff out of the cloud, do you have their permission to use it? So I think there's a certain amount of security and privacy that needs to go on. But I see really, really positive benefits from using and developing these kind of technologies.
Exactly. So 15 minutes. I'm not sure if we went over or under, and I'm really thankful to Alex for joining me today. I think that this is a great segue into some of the upcoming talks that we're going to be having on this technology or this concept topic called 15 minutes in the cloud. And Alex, any final thoughts?
No, that's it. I think we've done a pretty good job of getting it done in the time we had.
I think so. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Hope you enjoyed and have a good day.